What is up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Bettin and Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I am your host, Kyle Roscoe, and this is episode 110 as we near the 2-year anniversary of Bettin and Boozin coming up next month in January. We are talking Gulfstream Park once again for their championship meet, but we are covering the Tropical Parks OAKS and Derby card. And guys, let me tell you, and let me preface right now, this is not going to be a very easy card, but a lot of discussion and, of course, hopefully a lot of help for you guys. Thank you guys all for joining in the show. Of course, we greatly appreciate it. As you see scrolling at the bottom of the screen right now, please go subscribe and comment below the video player. Also, please like the video. If you like and subscribe, it's not only the easiest way to help us out, it's completely free to you guys, but also it pushes these videos out into the YouTube algorithm to hopefully bring like-minded horse players like yourself to the HHH Racing Podcast. And of course, for that, we thank you. You also see scrolling on the bottom side of the screen right now, bettinandboozin@gmail.com. Please email me with any questions, comments, or concerns, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I got a light show behind me. I don't know if anyone else can see that. Obviously, I hope my lights don't just burst into flames or something of that nature. That would be funny, though, let me tell you. As you see scrolling on the bottom of the screen now, Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, after this show, Pacific Horseplayers with Ryan and Noah. This tonight, they're having Doug O'Neill on and his son to talk about the Los Al Stakes coming up this Saturday. It's going to be a fantastic show, one you're not going to want to miss. And of course, tomorrow, Picks and Ponies at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time also has a very, very big guest as well. So please tune in tonight at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, or if you can't, please come back to the HHH Racing Podcast YouTube channel and watch the replay of it, and be here tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Picks and Ponies with Howard, Pete, and Paul. Two great guests, as Patrick mentioned in the chat, is tonight we have a special guest coming on, Chris Cupples, who writes for In the Money Media, and his hometown track his home track that he writes about, Gulfstream Park. We have, again, fantastic insight, maybe even some insider information we'll see from the connections down at Gulfstream Park. But again, going to be a fantastic show, and we hope you all enjoy. Every single podcast that's posted here on YouTube is also posted in audio form, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchors, where you can go to find those. Please go rate, review, and subscribe over on those three platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. Of course, I have TikTok and Instagram now at Bettin and Boozin Podcast. Again, I put up schedules, best bets, tidbits of the show. If someone hits something really nice, of course, I'll post it on there. Best bets are always posted beforehand as well, as I mentioned. So go follow us over on TikTok and Instagram. Of course, the podcast power picks are still going very, very strong, guys. 725 total picks since February of 2021, and we're at $2.14 on the ROI through that entire span. Anything over $2 is a net profit, and anything over $1.60 is over the average horse player ROI. So very, very good for so many years. So please go subscribe to those. And since they're so profitable, you'd imagine they'd be pretty expensive, right? You would be completely wrong there. $15.99 a month, only $4 every weekend. You get 2 full tracks every Saturday of price plays, spot plays, pick 5 grids. Again, everything you need to be successful on any given Saturday. We here at the HHH Racing Podcast got you covered with the power picks. And you can see previous editions of those power picks before you buy them, or learn more about the podcast at hhhracingpodcast.com. Guys, won't waste any more of your time. We'll bring on our fantastic co-host and our great guest, and we will get right into the handicapping. First off, again, writes for In the Money Media, a fantastic guy that I was able to meet finally at Keeneland in person over the last fall. I was about to say spring. That's not correct. Over last fall. Again, took us up. We met Kurt Becker and all this stuff. Fantastic guy. I'll bring him on first. From, again, writes in the Money Media, Chris Cupples. Chris, how are you doing tonight? Before I bring
doing great. Appreciate being here. Great fans at the Triple H Racing Podcast. I see chatting every time I tune in.
Yep, I was going to say, and for those that chat often on the show, you guys would recognize his name, as well as, like Chris said, he does chat a lot. Of course, we appreciate that, Chris, very much. Bringing on my co-hosts here, Patrick Kunsel, Charlie Freeman, full house tonight, boys. Almost like we got that one guy back, although he did abandon us, so we don't bring up his name. Boys, what's going on?
Nothing much. Glad to have you, Chris.
Yeah, glad to be here. Getting all y'all three up there at once. Now I really feel old.
Well, Charlie might have used all his words last time because he didn't want to apparently say anything to that. He used all his words up in the rant at the end of last night's show, and thank God for well, actually, probably sadly for all of us, we don't get to hear another one at the end of this because Alabama did not make it in to the college football playoff last weekend.
No, I'm very excited about it, to be honest, because, finals are over now. OSU's got to get ready for their big game. I get to cover, my favorite track, which luckily I'll get to go down to very soon. I need my voice. I'm very happy I can save it for horse racing instead of, ripping the committee apart again for their, their favorite team in Alabama. But I'm excited to talk about the horses for now. Football season can wait.
Yeah, for like I said, Charlie's saving his words, guys. Let everyone take notes of that. That might not happen again. Chris, exactly. I want to talk to you first. For those that might not be familiar with you, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into racing, and what you do now in the game. Like I said, you do write for good friends of the podcast, Into Money Media.
Well, my entire life, we've had quarter horses, performance horses, barrel horses, and later in life, I discovered the track and was immediately hooked. We had a small stable up until COVID hit, and we kind of got rid of everything for then and had several claimers. And right now, primarily playing in contests, focused on my wager, and mainly focused on learning more every day.
And there's one place that I know a lot of us have learned a lot through that book that we all come to read, that is A Better Way of Thinking, of course, by Matt Miller. So, Chris, very happy to have you on. I know, like I said, you've read it. So, like I said, fantastic book. For those that don't know, a good friend of the podcast, Matt Miller, wrote a book, A Better Way of Thinking.com. But Chris, we're very happy to have you on. We'll go to the chat real quick, and I see someone pretty special in the chat, so I will wait for that in a second. Of course, Katie was here very early, ready for a rocking good time. Katie, thanks so much for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it. The aforementioned Matt Miller. Matt Miller, of course, is here. Can't wait. Well, wait no longer. So, and which I assume is your wife, Chris, Amanda Cupples, watching from St. Jude, so I can give Chris a hard time. Amanda, we fully welcome that. So thank you so much for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it. I assume that's your wife, Chris, correct?
Yes, that is.
I love it. No, trust me. My wife hears me on the other side of the wall and gives me crap all the time. So I'm glad that someone else is going to get it a little bit sometime. Ed Burke, of course, is here. Ed, thanks so much for doing the show. Greatly appreciate it. Good friend that I met at Indiana this year, Nathan Woodward. I'm actually wearing my Indiana Champions Day quarter zip right now. Nathan, let's get tropical. Thanks so much for joining the show, man. Greatly appreciate it. Sean Kane is here as well. Sean, thanks so much for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it. Gentlemen, we'll get right into the handicapping. Finally, I found this at a bar near me. We're, of course, bringing up drinks. We're betting, but we're also boozing, ladies and gentlemen. I bought a Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Ale. Apparently, it's an ale that's aged in bourbon barrels. I don't like bourbon, and I know that's probably like a horse racing sin. Nowadays, you go bourbon, you go with racing. However, I don't like it, but this is actually extremely good, and it's 8.2%. So we might be going for it by the end of this show, but hopefully we can continue to have a good time. So cheers to everybody out there. Hopefully everyone's got one going, and let's get into the handicapping. And as I mentioned before, guys, this is not the easiest card at all. It's the late pick 5 on Chapel Park, Oaks, and Derby Day. It starts in race number 7 at Gulfstream Park. And as we touched on last weekend, we'll touch on it again. We, of course, don't have morning lines, as the morning lines won't come out until tomorrow for Saturday's card. And also, we will not have numbers in the PPs. So, guys, if you could, please try and name the horse post position number as well as the horse's name for our viewers to hopefully give them at least a little bit of knowledge, because I know it's hard to follow along when there's not numbers on the page. As I mentioned, it starts in race number 7, guys, going 6 furlongs. Starting off with everyone's favorite, the 2-year-old maiden special weight, going 6 furlongs on the dirt, draws a field of 10. And as I bring up the Equibase right now, you guys can take the guesses who's going to be morning line favorite. And here there's a couple. You got Majorca for Irad and Pletcher, Gosger for Gaffleone and Brennan Walsh. You got Playa del Mar, Edgar Zayas, Bill Mott. A ton of big names in here as the championship meet is fully underway at Gulfstream Park. And as the picks come up on the bottom side of the screen, you can see how challenging this day might be, as we have 4 different horses on top for all 4 of the co-hosts, or all 4 of the co-hosts. Chris, as you are a guest, you will go first every time, and you are going with one of those horses that I mentioned. Majorca, Irad Ortiz, Todd Pletcher, definitely not a bad combination to go with to start off the late pick 5.
Yeah, I copped out here a little bit with what will be the favorite. There are a couple others I like, but this one was interesting with some question marks. I had a couple works for this horse back in April, and he was working with some Ward horses. Then didn't make it to the races till now. But an overwhelming stat here is Pletcher, 24% first-time starters dirt sprinting at Gulfstream. With Irad, 38%, 65% in the money. And Pletcher really hadn't come up with a good, solid 2-year-old yet. He's got to have at least one. Maybe this is it.
Yeah, and there's a couple. He has a couple others, and one in the other maiden race we'll be talking about in this sequence as well, Chris. But this is one volatile. Volatile has had a very nice start to his stallion career. First time starters winning 21% of the time. 12 for 57 on the first time asking. Obviously, you get Pletcher in that regard too. Irad hops aboard, who's been basically just showing everyone down at Gulfstream how to ride. 9 for 31, 29% on the win end to start the meet. And as you mentioned, working very well in April. Didn't come to the races until now. You could take that right. You could take that either way, where maybe they were trying to get him ready. Maybe something happened in April. However, Pletcher's taking his time with this colt. Finally gets into the races. He's working well. So it should be pretty well meant in this spot, as I have him third and Patrick has him second.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a spot where you either got to single this horse in the first leg. If you miss, you can play a pick 4. If you're going to use multiples, I don't think you can use this horse from a value standpoint. If you're going to play other horses, you're going to lean on them. It may be a spot where I have 2 tickets.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And the thing is that the nice thing about having a race like this first in the sequence, right, is you can take a look at the board and see where all the money is going. If this one goes off, something to 5, maybe the money's going to show where the race is going to be won by, and Majorca could definitely take that amount of money. Patrick, you have this horse in second. Anything else you want to add? And then you have the number 1 actually winning the race, who none of us have anywhere.
Yeah, so with the 7, Chris hit on with those stats. I also put in on Formulator. I had the last 5 years with 2-year-old first-time starters at Gulfstream. Pletcher was, on the win end, 35%.
I was going to say, I can do it right now.
And 62% in the money. So he does seem to be clicking really well when it comes to the last 5 years. And then with the 1, listen, this $700,000 purchase, is the first foal out of this dam. And on debut, faced a tough Safi horse who won on the lead for E5 Racing. I rewatched that race. The horse ran on with it pretty well, but really was not interested in passing in that race. So I'm going to take a shot here with this Gustavo Delgado horse, who seems to be pretty good with 2-year-olds. And when I've noticed when he has a bigger priced horse, they do seem to develop into something pretty good. So I'm going to hope that the rail isn't too big of a problem here. And I think in a wide open race, this horse might end up going off as the favorite. But I really like the way this horse has been working and should be in a good spot.
JR Ranch and OGMA. My memory's deceiving me. Is that part of that type of like Restrepo kind of ownership group? That I don't know if it's Mage necessarily ownership group, but I know they have a lot of big money horses with Gustavo Delgado. So even Delgado has a small barn. He's no stranger to these type of big money horses, winning 13% out of 61 starts so far in 2024. This one ran very well on debut. The only thing is I don't necessarily like the rail for this horse. That's my number 1 concern. He's going to have to really show enough speed to get to the front here. And there's others to the outside, which I think are interesting as well. So one that's going to be a little bit lower price, I'm willing to take a little bit of a shot against. But Pat, if he gets the lead, I completely understand why you're going with this horse 7-1 first time asking. So, and Mage was comment, thank you, Terry Frank. So I'm making up things as we go. So that's just is that the I've only had 2 sips of this thing. I might be talking already, but either way, Pat, good luck with your number 1 comment. See, why do I do it? Commentatore. Thank you. Okay, whatever. I'm giving up. Tapping out on that one. Charlie, you're going with the number 4, who, again, none of us have anywhere in the top 3. That is the number 4, Playa del Mar. It's the Bill Mott horse for Godolphin. Edgar Zayas hops aboard, of course, perennial leading rider at Gulfstream Park, especially when all the good jockeys don't come in. So what'd you like most about Playa del Mar, the number 4?
Yeah, well, for starters, I'm really tired lately of watching Godolphin horses win and me not have their horses anywhere, and just continuously, looking up and seeing, Paul or Noah in our chat saying, "Oh, look, another win for the boys in blue," and I'm, looking down and be like, "Yeah, I didn't have that one." So Godolphin's really had it going right now. I understand, not that Bill Mott's, first time numbers are necessarily bad, but obviously compared to someone like a Todd Pletcher, or like, I know he's not in this race, but like a Wesley Ward, I understand that he's not necessarily as known for being a guy who gets his horses cranked first time, but I really like 2 Playa del Mars out of. I know the work tab isn't anything explosive, but Bill Mott doesn't normally crank his horses up, so I just like that it's a steady work tab. Another angle for me personally, I know I am kind of taking on Mr. South Beach, but I'm sure Chris would know more about this than me, but I like the angle when I see horses working at Payson. For me personally, it's just the track where anytime I see a horse, whether it's for, Cox or Brown or Pletcher or Bill Mott, really any of these big trainers, whenever they send their horses to Payson, that usually for me kind of signals that they, think it's a horse they have big plans for down the line. So I think personally also this is just a race that's pretty open. I think obviously what makes this an interesting and difficult way to start a pick 5 is, like you hinted at, Kyle, it's very much so something where you just have to wait and see the board. And I feel like, as Chris was kind of hinting at, it's one of those where if this 7 just gets pounded, then maybe you play 2 tickets and single the horse, or completely take a stand and play 1 ticket. And for me, that was kind of why I tossed the horse. Is I feel like there's a lot of question marks, and I would like to try to beat a horse that, probably be 8-5 or something. I think for me, very much so, as of now, this would be a spread race.
I mean, yeah, we'll talk about it later in the sequence. A little bit of a spoiler, though. The last 2 races can be narrowed down, I think, a pretty decent amount. So this one could be one where you could play 2 tickets, take a stand on 1, and play for maybe a higher denomination, and then spread on a different ticket, or try and take a stand and maybe spread a little bit. But as Chris said, maybe leaving out the 7 because it might not make sense from a value standpoint. Charlie, you have the number 6 in second. We won't talk too much about it, but anything you want to quickly add before I move into my top 2 and Chris's second place horse?
Yeah, I mean, gets Raylu aboard for McPeak. What Me Worry, again, another one with just a steady work tab. I liked, who the horse was out of. I also just, quite honestly, anytime I've sort of looked at a McPeak horse and thought they were live at all, they usually end up running pretty well. I remember one time a horse that Howard was really high on, and we all kind of assumed was a guaranteed winner. I think it was Kinetic Control, was like 3-5 in that race, and then I'm blanking on the name of the horse, but it was the 4 in that race. I ended up going off at 10-1 as a first for McPeak and got it done. And it's just something where I feel like he's another one where he's a solid trainer, but kind of gets overlooked for firsters because he's not known for it. But lately, his horses have been running very solidly. Again, I like who the horse out of. The work tab is consistent. I think this is one that'll certainly be a price and likely won't get it done. Is again, McPeak is one who more so likes to get his horses ready down the line, but certainly one to look at in a race that could be open.
No, absolutely. I mean, look, especially underneath, like you said, McPeak might have the opportunity or the best opportunity to win first time out. However, this could be one to maybe pick up pieces late, and obviously Raylu hops aboard as well. I'm a little surprised. Sorry, say that again. Go for it.
Also, McPeak sent that horse to Saratoga, which when he has a good one, he'll send up there. It spiked a fever, had to scratch, and they backed up, punted. Now they're here to regroup. So Kenny probably thinks a little bit of this one.
Yeah, and obviously you could see that July 13th. So only 5 works since coming back. However, 4 consecutive pretty decent works. So this horse should be ready at least first time out. And obviously bred by the Midwest legend Bob Lothenbach. So hopefully that one can get going. I'm surprised that no one really has this horse in here. And obviously I'm very interested to know why. Gosker is the horse I'm going with on top, the number 8, Gaffleone, Brendan Walsh, who's 3 for 8. So far, this Gulfstream has been working up the work tab completely out of Nyquist, who I'm very, very fond of. 15% first-time starters for his 370 runners that have run. 59 of them have won. And Gloria S., who's the dam, it's a Tappet mare. Go Gloria S., you see 102 buyer, Granted, on the turf routing, however, this is a half to Harvey's Little Goyle, the American Pharaoh filly out of Gloria S, as I mentioned. So run was third in the Alabama on the dirt behind Swiss Skydiver and Bonnie South. However, her best running did come in probably the QE2 Cup at Keeneland and then the Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf. So going long on the turf, so maybe 6 furlongs on the dirt might not be what this horse wants to do. However, you go down the line a little bit. Granted, back to 2019, Stifle Yourself for Bill Mott was a horse that won going one turn at Belmont and at and fourth at Saratoga. However, did break her maiden at Belmont going 6.5. So this, I'm just going not necessarily going outside the box with this. And however, I think the breeding coupled with the works might be able to put this one over the top. Plus, I like that he's drawn outside comparatively to someone like Patrick, who has the one on top. Chris, you can feel free to tell me I'm a moron, realistically speaking, and then feel free to finish up with any of your other 2 horses you have second or third.
There wasn't nothing wrong with Gosker. Just I didn't get that far deep. He was just kind of down in the pecking order for me. The couple works I seen was nothing like impressive, but there was nothing negative, so I could see it. The most interesting horse to me, once I get past the favorite, is Ain't No Disco. This horse took no money on debut, ran very well, lost his path late. Jock just kind of set up. Next start, got hung extra wide, and that race had David Athens winning. He hadn't really done anything since. Patch Adams ran third. Most people have seen him. Me, Matt, several others lost a ton of money on that horse at Keeneland. And the horse that finished between them two, Campbell, is a very nice horse. I actually had a little money on that horse at Keeneland at a price. That was a very, very deep group of maidens. And the next race, it don't say it in the chart, but I think this horse clipped heels inside early. Jock kind of wrapped up after that. The horse stayed on, ran on pretty good. A better trip here, I can see that one winning. That would be my – if you made me pick one besides the favorite, that would be it.
Yeah. Look, I have the horse 9 in second as well. I completely share that sentiment. Patrick has the horse in third, and you have the number 2 Galatini in third. The old Howard zero buyer angle coming into that next race. Ran well, didn't take a whole lot of money, but ran well. Last wrap up, Chris, anything you want to add before we move on?
Galatini is actually the workmate of the 9, Ain't No Disco, and outworked Ain't No Disco last time. I would call it by a slight margin. And that horse was actually got hung a little wide next time. Should improve here.
Yeah, no, like I said, and going to be a price for sure. So in what a race that it looks like, especially to Chris, the favorite and kind of everybody else, definitely looks like a spread race if you don't like the number 7, the Pletcher Irad horse in this one. I'm going 8-9-7, Chris going 7-9-2, Charlie going 4-6-8, Pat going 1-7-9. Again, guys, for this opening kind of couple races, these are the really tough ones. We'll go take a little bit longer here. And the last 2 races are the ones that we can narrow, and based on our picks, a little spoiler alert, can be narrowed down real quick. Racing Downwind, of course, is here. Racing Downwind, Sink, thanks so much for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it. Let's see who else. Howard is here, of course. Great to have Chris on the show. So knowledgeable and deep dives into his handicapping studies. Got my notebook out and ready to write down some tips, a little bit of brown nosing from the boss there, but don't worry about it. Obviously, we all share the same sentiment with Chris. I showed TC Markham's comment. TC, thanks so much for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it. And Noah Maher's, of course, here. What's up, fellas? If not 4th on B&B, Chris is at the top of the list. So, Noah, thanks so much, man, for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it. So many kind words for the guest coming on today.
I appreciate it.
Hey, like I said, Chris, it doesn't come lightly around here. I'll tell you that much.
My wife's sitting at St. Jude going, man, these people really don't know him, do they?
No, absolutely. And wives always say that. Trust me. And I'm new into the game, Chris, but I completely share the same sentiment. Let's move on to race number 8, guys. And race number 8 is the one half of the features on Saturday's card. It's the Tropical Park Oaks going a mile and a 16th on the turf course. The rail's at 45 feet. And I'll bring up the Equibase right now as it's a full field of 12 going the mile and the 16th with some pretty good returning horses that we haven't seen for a long time. And also some very good horses that have been running throughout the year. Life's an Audible, Bravo and Pletcher, Waukesha for Junior Alvarado and Bill Mott, a horse we've talked about many times on this podcast. Viva Vuv, I believe is how you say that name. I could be wrong. Viverve? Is it?
Yeah, Pete Isle says Viverve. So
yeah, Viverve. Then there we go. See, Charlie, why don't you take that then at that point? Tyler Gaffleone, Jack Sisterson, Pendulum, Miguel Vasquez, Brennan Walsh, many places you can go in this race. Is race number 8. I pull up on the bottom of the screen right now. And again, bunch of different horses coming in for all of us on this one. Chris, of course, going first, the number 12 in our time, Edwin Gonzalez, Saffie Joseph Jr., Chris. One on the outside, which is generally not the best place to be in these types of races. However, I'm sure, as you're going to hint at, has plenty of speed to get over from that 12 gate.
Yeah, plenty of speed. Broke from the 10 hole last time, cleared to the rail, and never really was in any danger at any point in that race. If she repeats that race, I really don't know how they're going to catch her. Somebody's going to have to come early and put pressure on her, and there's really not a lot of speed in here. But these 3-year-old stakes races at the end of the year, especially for fillies and mares, it's their last chance trying to get black type before they have to face older stakes horses. So you got a lot of people that just throwing horses in here. They're hoping to hit the board. Anything could really happen here. There's a lot of horses in here that I've lost a lot of money on. So I know it's a deep field.
And as I mentioned before, like I said, there's a couple horses in this race that we've talked about a lot, and I know a lot of people have chased. Some finally hit on the last race that one of those horses ran. The one, i.e. Charlie, has on top. And I'll show the time form, Chris. Obviously, we show this a lot here, the time form pace projector. They have the 12 out there loose on the lead. And if the 12's loose on the lead, could be very tough. I have the horse in third. Just think there might be some that may be a little bit better. However, that last race was very good. If the horse gets loose, can easily see that one taking them the distance. So completely agree with you there, Chris. Charlie, I'll let you talk first. Everyone's favorite horse, it seemed like, on this podcast at the beginning of the year last year in the Florida Oaks, Waukesha won very nice over a very good horse in style points last time out, but really she hasn't been seen since, and this is a pretty tough spot to come back in, I will say.
Yeah, I think it's aggressive, but I also think Bill Mott knows exactly what he's doing with her. Again, like you said, it's a horse who I guess I can't really say I've chased, in that I've, had the horse twice and was wrong 2 back and then was right the next time. So it didn't, it wasn't that long of a chase. I'm happy I didn't have to, file any divorce papers. And as you said, beat a nice horse in style points who, unfortunately, I don't know if you've hit divorce yet, but I know mainly because of Joel Rosario is kind of.
Yeah, I was going to say there's one guy in the middle of
but,
horses. But
yeah, time form was actually a large reason why I ended up putting this horse on top. I mean, I actually hadn't looked at it yet. But to be honest with you, what I mainly had seen in this spot was kind of what Chris was touching on. I thought this 12 was pretty loose, but I just thought the 10 could sit right off. And I feel like something we see, all the time is, sometimes these horses that are quote unquote loose or get to the lead end up setting some fractions though that are still pretty decent. And it's actually the horse who is sitting just off that ends up being opportunistic and stays within touching distance. And I just think that's the exact kind of ride that Waukesha has done in the past. And, you look at that race 3 back at Aqueduct, and I feel like, and even the race last time, I think it's just a perfect example of this horse's running style. She likes to, be within a length or two, sit off the speed, and then stay within distance so that if they don't go very fast, like that race 3 back, she can still go by. And even if they do go fast, she saves enough in the tank to go by like last time. I like her versatility. Again, I like how she's steadily improving, lightly raced 3-year-old. And again, I just think the trip is perfect. I think she just lets the 12 do the dirty work and goes right by.
I mean, look, if she gets that type of trip, I completely agree with you. I just don't know where she's been. I mean, coming into this race off of a 9-month layoff is going to be pretty tough, but Bill Mott obviously is one of the best in the business in spotting horses. So if she's gotten better to her 3-year-old year through this break, she could definitely be in the fight for the win end. Obviously, completely respect her. However, I think, again, there's a bunch of others that are very interesting in here. Pat, you have the 6th, another horse that none of us have anywhere in here, Random Harvest. This is a horse who I actually had 3rd, and then the pace projector, I couldn't get over the 12, so I had to put the 12 in there. But back-to-back, pretty convincing wins. One at Kentucky Downs and going long at Keeneland in 1 mile and 3/16, N1X for James Toner. So getting Carrasco aboard here, again, going to have to continue, going to have to show a little bit of improvement, I think, to win this one. However, it's definitely not out of the realm for such a lightly raced horse.
Yeah, and you bring up the point about some of these coming into off layoffs and stuff like that. The names that we kind of know, and I felt like I was trying to find somebody else in here, and I think the six, obviously 2 for 2, the winning from the 12 hole last out was really impressive. I know the buyer came back to be a little bit below what her competition will be, but I think the 6 Random Harvest is a quality filly in here. Toner does not have good stats in stakes races, so he's going to have to get off the schneid, as they like to say, when it comes to winning a stakes race. But I'm hoping this is the horse that can do it. And he's put this horse on a pretty interesting path. Starting at Kentucky Downs, collecting that Kentucky bred purse in that maiden race, and then winning at Keeneland in an allowance race, facing competition that you look at their next race, and the third place horse actually came back to win an allowance race. So it seems to be that this horse has faced some sort of competition. So I'm hoping to catch a price in this spot in a race where you're dealing with a lot of horses coming off layoffs that I can really trust. But I do get what Chris said about the 12. If that horse can get out of the gate and get to the lead, it could be very tough.
Yeah, and there's your James Toner stat that you were talking about, Pat. They said off the hump, the donut over 49 in stakes in the last 5 years. So going to have to get off the hump. However, I think really going to log me out. DRF's fun sometimes. I'll tell you that much. Either way. She's ran great races. It's just a matter of can she put it together in again stakes company where James Toner has not seemed to win in the last 5 years. However, quality filly, I think, is just going to be a pretty tough spot. I mean, a lot of these horses are going to be in tough spots. But Patrick, I completely respect you trying to go against horses off the layoff, which I think is not necessarily a necessity. However, they're going to be low price, so looking other ways might inherit some value, which I went with the number 8. Charlie, say it again for me.
Viverve.
Viverve. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Jack Sisterson is actually a trainer, which I really don't tend on betting that often. However, gets Gaffleone back in this spot where they last ran 3rd in the Music City. I just feel like this horse has kept the best company, and however hasn't won in the last 4 starts, but coming back to Gulfstream with this horse are 3 for 3 in the top 2 and 2 of them on the win end. I have no problem. The one concern I actually had going into this race was the distance. She tends to run a lot of miles, 6.5, 7.5 at Gulfstream. But last time the mile was 16, she was coming, did lose to the 12 in our time, which Chris touched on. Could get the same trip there. However, she was very far back in that one. Ended up chasing down, just not necessarily enough after NR got a very, very nice trip in that one. If she can sit a little bit closer, maybe a couple, 3.5 lengths as she did last year or earlier this year in the Sanibel Island, I think is much more of her type of trip. However, I think she's going to be a pretty decent price. I'm hoping somewhere in the mid singles, maybe 7-2, 4-1. That would be enough for me to take a shot on this one. However, any lower than that, and I definitely, especially in a race as competitive as this, Chris, I definitely have to look other ways, at least from a value standpoint. However, you do obviously think this horse is live as well as you have her in second.
Yeah, she's super consistent. Just shows up every time. Would I want to win better? No. But if she wins, nobody's going to be surprised.
Right. And that's why I mean, you have one of those that we'll talk on later. It's kind of a very price dependent one for me. I would definitely, I would bet a win bet on her, but like I said, I have to get a pretty square price to be able to play her just from a vertical standpoint, but definitely include in horizontals for me, at least. Last 2 horses I'll talk about real quick. Life's Inaudible, I feel like we have to mention. She was very, very good last year, especially running at Gulfstream. Beat Style Points, just lost to Pounce, who's a very nice horse. Just lost to Ozara, who was also a pretty decent horse back early part of Gulfstream last year. She's doing the same move as the number 10 is, coming off of a very, very long layoff since last March, basically since the end of last championship meet. It's going to be another very tough spot. The thing that I found really interesting was Joe Bravo's on this horse. Why is Joe Bravo on this? I mean, IRAD's ridden her all 7 times. Now comes off of this horse to ride another in here. So that was for me, Chris, that's a pretty telltale sign that said she can easily win this race, right? Especially if she improves coming from earlier in the year. But that's got to mean something, right?
Well, the IRAD factor is exactly why I have See You Around over Life is Audible. I know it's a Fletcher horse that he's been riding, coming off a layoff. He jumps ship, goes to a horse with good European form. If I'm not mistaken, I would have to look back. And Howard, if you're in the chat, you may know, but the French Guineas winner, right, who I don't know how to pronounce that, but whatever she is, wasn't she coming to the Breeders' Cup? Because I think I liked that horse when I went and watched replays. But this horse was beat a length and 3/4 in the French Guineas. Come back, was run third in, do not know how to pronounce that, but it's a Group 3 Soprano. Do not know what happened in Aqueduct. She just kind of ran around the track, one paced, but now she's getting a Gulfstream. So it's turf, but it's totally different surface.
Right. And this is one that it is a completely different surface, but this is one I like where coming off of the layoff, they have a race in her from the Pebbles now coming in. The Pebbles wasn't necessarily a bad race either. Obviously got an 81 first time in the States, now coming back to this one. I mean, she could, this is another one that could easily win this race. Going to take more money due to the old IRAD tax as we describe it here, but definitely going to be interesting to see who comes out on top in the Tropical Park Oaks. I'm going 8-4-12. Chris going 12-8-5. Charlie's going 10-7-3. Patrick's going 6-3-5. Guys, appreciate you guys hanging on. These first races are pretty tough, so we're trying to spend a little bit more time, as I mentioned before. The next race is another 2-year-old main special weight going a mile on the dirt, which has a field of 9. So hopefully we can go a little bit quicker for you guys on this one. Morning line favorite could be many different. You have an IRAD Pletcher horse again to the outside. The number 9, the number 7 Risk Factor, a first-time starter for Mark Cassie. The number 1 on the inside, a Brad Cox first-time starter with Gaff Leone. So a ton of different ways you can go in here again. And as I bring up the picks, 2 of us are going with the number 9, Vasimo in here for IRAD and Pletcher. Patrick's going with the number 1, Rapture. And Chris, you are going with the number 3, Helicity. And this is the horse, honestly, Chris, in this race. I'll be completely honest, I did not know what to do with in this race. She's very, very fast. Where he's very, very fast. Excuse me, I'll take a drink for that one in a second. He's very fast and can end up getting the lead. If not, could sit a really nice trip off of the number 6 Shot in the Dark, which you and I both have in second.
Well, there's more boiled down to the rest of the horses in here. I found problems and negatives with. Obviously, it don't look good when a horse has ran 4 times and it's been on the turf, Tapeta. But I have old notes, and even went back and watched the old videos. This horse worked fine at Saratoga over the dirt. Had to work over the dirt that I got to see in South Florida. Looked fine. But mainly it comes down to there's a negative on about every other horse you want to mention to me in here. I can tell you something negative about it.
No, and like I said, I would love to hear, because obviously we're all going different ways than you. This is just one that, like I said, very fast and can easily win. It's just a matter of, like I said, Tapeta, turf. There's no dirt breeding at all for him. If you go back, Sky Mesa, Chasing Helicity was all turf. Go back in the family tree, Lunch Hour was all turf and synthetic. Even Graciousness, which is the Factors, there's dirt breeding there. However, obviously there's just no dirt at all on the dam side. But we see this all the time, right? Where they just don't really have the punch on the dirt and the turf and the synthetic. However, the horse is working very well on dirt. So maybe Sisson sees how much she's working well at Palm Meadows. So why not try him out here? Try and get a win under the belt.
Yeah,
so,
and there's plenty of spots they could run this horse on the Tapeta or the turf, but they chose here.
Yep, exactly. And that's obviously, and Jack Sisterson's, again, like I mentioned earlier, not one that I follow really hard, especially betting wise. However, definitely one that knows his stuff and knows where to place his horses. So definitely worth a look at least. Patrick, you and I are going with the number 9, and I'm interested Charlie, you and I are going with the number 9 in this race. Pat's going with the number 1. So, Charlie, I'll let you talk about the 9, and then Pat, I'll let you talk about the 1. Vasimo is a horse for IRAD Pletcher. Nyquist again out of B Sharp Sonata, which is a pulpit dam. Team Penny Racing bought this one for $120,000 in September of 23, Charlie.
Yeah, I'm honestly more excited to hear what Chris had to say against the 9, because this was actually the race I was trying to Obviously, I know we don't give out a pick 5 ticket, but this was the race where I was a little more excited to try to narrow it down to a few horses. Now, obviously, with me having, firsters and first and second, and a horse who's only ran once and third, I'm not saying by any means there's any monster I see because, again, firsters are tough to figure out. But again, the Pletcher Irad duo per usual. I like that this horse is to the outside. And I also just thought there was a steady workout tab. I don't think I'm, as vocal about being a Nyquist fan as you are, Kyle, but I still saw the same numbers that you talked about with Nyquist earlier. So that was another plus for me. And I thought, some of these others who have ran have had chances and haven't gotten it done. And the others who have only, run once haven't done much for me. So I was trying to find a firster here.
Well, yeah. And Chris, obviously, feel free to chime in whenever you need. If you have a negative on this one, I would love to hear it.
It's Pletcher and Irad. So there you go. Good stats, blah, blah, blah. What I've seen in the mornings, I'm not betting $1 on this horse. It's a total toss, not using him.
Hey.
He don't respond. And, it gets to race day. You got Hall of Famer. Maybe they get this horse to run. But to me, the only way I see this horse winning, if he plods along and nobody else in here can run.
Hey, like I said, I love to hear stuff like that because obviously it makes you rethink. But one thing that I like is he's drawn outside, which in these races, especially going a mile out of the chute at Gulfstream Park, I really don't like the rail going this mile. So I just like that she's drawn outside. If she sits kind of a middling trip, that's what I was hoping for. However, Chris, she's going to take money. Mentioned that before. Hall of Famer, always going to take money. If she doesn't look good in the mornings, definitely a way to play against. Even if she's going to win, you're not missing out on too much value there. Definitely not a vertical play for me. These first 3 races are hard enough. I definitely would feel at least better in the earlier races than I would in this one. This is definitely a tough one to start out. Patrick, you're going with Rapture, the number 1, the Brad Cox first-time starter. Bernardini Mare, Uncle Mo. This horse is going to want to run the mile, no problem. Windstar, everything you want in this race, and you pick up Tyler.
Yeah, I gotta hope the rail's my friend on Saturday because I got a couple in here that,
No
especially
kidding.
on top. No, I just can't shy away from what Brad Cox is doing right now with 2-year-olds. This horse seems to fit the mold with first time out, should run big in a spot where I would expect to show early speed in here. And it's just they've just been so good across the board with their debuts, winning at almost 25%. I'm not quite sure. You have seen some nice works in there. I'm not sure if Chris, if you've heard anything else regarding the works, if there's anything negative on that end. But I'm going to take my shot and definitely pay attention to the board with the 1 Rapture in this spot.
I've seen a couple. There was nothing negative. Wasn't wow. My only negative about this horse at all is a stat that really doesn't mean a lot if you like the horse. I will use this horse, but Brad Cox don't send first timers to Gulfstream. It's just something he don't do. He'll send some claimers, but I think I didn't write it down, but I'm wanting to say maiden special weights at Gulfstream in the last 5 years. I think it was like 2, 3, 4, 5 runners, maybe. I just thought it was an odd move for them.
2
I
runners.
wonder maybe he's establishing a stable down here.
Yeah, first time starters at Gulfstream in the last 5 years, Chris, over 2. So definitely, and
like I said, nothing negative on the horse itself. I just thought it was an odd move for the barn.
And one for these types of connections too, nonetheless. Windstar, China Horse Club and all that type of stuff. So definitely one to look at. Patrick, sorry to cut you off.
No, not at all. And I wonder if, Cox is doing this to kind of get him off the path of a couple other horses that, he seems to have high hopes for that are, on trails to, bigger races. I wonder if maybe he's creating a path this way, running a Gulfstream with this horse. I don't know. I was just thinking.
That's quite possible because he does separate them. He don't like running his horses against each other.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And obviously, if you can get him going here, as you mentioned, he doesn't run very much down here at all. So definitely one that could pave the way with Tyler aboard. The last thing actually I want to mention real quick on Vasimo, B Sharp Sonata, which is the dam, obviously a very, very good horse in her own right. Ended up winning at a mile and at 7 furlongs at the Gulfstream this type of trip. Also, she's had a sibling Kid 10 set for Paulo Lobo, Ricardo Santana. 1 at a mile at Churchill Downs, 1 at a mile at Indiana, even though that's 2 turns. Ellis Park. So this type of trip was also been winning from her prodigy as well. But of course, I completely respect Chris. And if this horse isn't working well in the mornings, that's definitely something to take into consideration. Guys, we'll keep this one moving along here. I'm going 9.65. Chris is going 3.67. Charlie's going 9.15. Pat's going 1.94. Guys, moving on to race number 10, which is the other half. Or no, sorry. No, of course. Excuse me. How could I forget?
It's the featured race.
This is a Gulfstream Park show that we're doing, ladies and gentlemen, and it would not be Gulfstream Park if there was not a $10,000 Tapeta claimer sandwiched in the middle of the
This is what we're here for.
This is what we do. This is what we all want.
This is why we needed Chris on. This is.
I'll tell you what.
This is the race.
Hey, I love these race.
I was going to say, there's one guy who's definitely looking forward to this race, and it is the guy to my right. So bringing up the Equibase right now, guys, I'll show you 9 horses in this one. The morning light favorite is almost most definitely going to be the number 4, Swan Lake. Irad, Carlos David. Number 9, Valentine Bugs, not too far behind for Drayden Van Dyke and Jennifer Young. Also, Bringer of Rain's going to take a little bit of money, the number 7, and probably Holy Moly Moses, which fantastic name, by the way. Romero Mara, glad to see him back in the saddle, and Robbie Falcone Jr. Chris, as I bring up your picks right now, this is one that you specifically messaged me for, if I'm not mistaken, saying this is your best opinion on the entire day.
Yeah, I will bet more money on this race than any other 4 we talk about tonight. I'm going to win bet Valentine Bug. Something I've been getting more confidence in is my own figures that I make. In translating the Prescow down figures to Gulfstream has kind of been a work in progress, and they're starting to show off that they're accurate and they're working for me. The figures I had this horse at Prescow fit with these horses. Comes to Gulfstream, this horse did everything but win last time. Went right by on the out. We're getting a little extra ground. He's going to be outside. Now, there is a possibility Swan Lake gates to wire. So I will have an exacta with Swan Lake over Valentine Bug. But Valentine Bug will be a win bet if I can get any kind of price. Put that back up, and then I'm going to come back, and I'm going to give you an ice-cold trifecta right here.
Look, man, hey, so stay tuned for that after we talk about these next 2 races, because Chris has got Chris is, like I said, this is the one that he specifically messaged me that he felt super strong about and wanted to talk about. I completely respect Valentine Bug. Patrick, Charlie, you guys do as well. You have her in 3rd and 2nd respectively. That last race at Gulfstream was very good, pretty far back. I think farther back than what he wants to be as well. Difference is between him and Swan Lake. I do think Swan Lake will get loose, Patrick, in this race, which I'm sure you might see as well, being that you and Charlie both have him in front. And Valentine Bug is, even though he's 7 years old, that last race was the best one he's run in a very, very long time.
And something that's on me for failing to mention, if you go back and watch that race, got to the rail, saving ground. It was actually, some would say it was a bad ride. I say it's an excellent ride. Drayden actually backed this gelding out a couple of lengths, late turn, where he could get outside, and then came. Where, he got inside, he's waiting on the lane, it didn't happen, so he backed out and came.
Yep, and, that type of move, you only lose by 3/4 of a length, right? I mean, that could be, that's the whole race.
I would say that horse was a length better last time.
Okay. Like I said, I love that. But my thing is that you actually hinted at that might happen. I think the Swan Lake just might be a little too fast out of the early gate. Last time he had a lot of pace pressure up front, 23-3, which is definitely not fast for Gulfstream Park. However, 46-4 to the half mile at a mile 70 is decently fast and was still able to hang on. You could argue, the people that he ended up beating in that race, blah, blah, blah. Carlos David, as Charlie has talked about many times, is a very underrated Gulfstream Park trainer, 22%, both in 2024 and so far at this meet. Patrick, is it the pace angle for you? Obviously, the numbers fit. Anything you want to talk about on the number 4, Swan Lake?
Yeah, I won't elaborate too much because you guys hit on the head with Swan Lake. What he's kind of done. He's sat right at these ranks and done pretty well. So I'm not going to try and get cute, although I do think Chris makes up some valid points about the 9 when it comes to the trips that that horse has been getting. I wish him luck with that one.
Mr. South Beach?
Yeah, no, I'm actually very happy to hear what Chris said, because to me, I feel like, and I won't speak for everyone, but it seems like we all have a decent consensus that the first few races we covered are pretty wide open. for me, this is one, and I understand, from a logical perspective, because of the prices, maybe you should single. I have a feeling Swan Lake is going to be a horse who opens up, 6, 7 to 5 morning line, goes off at 4 to 5 because of the IRAD tax. And as you mentioned, a very under the radar trainer, a horse that does look loose on paper. And I'm sure a lot of people will single this horse. I will never single a horse in a race of this quality personally. But I completely agree with Chris. If you went ABC style, I'd have the 4 and 9 as A's, and then everybody else that I even think has a chance would be a C for me. I think this is completely a 2-horse race. Either the 4 gets loose, or as you kind of hinted at, Kyle, I don't think the 9 wants to be that far back. So I think the 9 sits a much closer stalking trip, though, stays within, and it's just going to be a question of, does Swan Lake, set fractions where these others who are older horses that don't really pass can't catch? Or, does Swan Lake naturally go maybe a little too fast, and then the 9 stays within distance of getting there? So for me, I think it's just the 4 or 9, and then everybody else is just fighting for third.
Yeah, that's kind of the way like I said. Patrick does have the 7, who Charlie also has in third. Patrick has him in second. So, but I think a lot of us are thinking around the same wavelength of the 4 and 9. Ed Burke brings up, how does Time Form see the pace this race? My apologies, I can't believe I didn't show that. They do have the number 4 Swan Lake out there on the lead. However, the 7, 1, and 8 bringing up, for me, if that does happen on the early pace, I very much think that Swan Lake might just be gone. However, the 9, again, as we've touched on, is very live in a lot of our opinions.
And a lot closer in that time form than obviously the horse was last time.
Correct. Right. Exactly. The horse was almost dead last time. So definitely worth bringing up. Last horses we'll talk about very quick. Holy Moly Moses is the horse I have in there. No one else does. That race at Presque Isle I thought was decent. However, it was a Pennsylvania state bred. I was with the 7 the whole way. Kind of just coming from Kathleen Damasi, who's a very, very good trainer out at Presque Isle, to Falcone. Falcone does very good with these trainer switches, a drop in class from the state bred to this type of race. Romero Marat aboard, who's rode very well since coming back. This is just one I'm looking for at least a little bit of a price to round out the exotics, but completely respect the 7 you guys have in third. Bringer of Rain, who's run very, very good the last 2 times, actually 3 times for that matter. And actually Romero Marat actually switches off of a horse that he rode 2 weeks ago, now coming to here. Again, not too much time, so I just wanted to bring that one up. But Chris, I'll leave you with the final thoughts as usual. This is actually a horse I was this close to adding in there as well. Kind of a dogfight between underneath horses, which I feel like a lot of us think in this race. Uncle Armando, one of my personal favorite Pete Aiello calls. It was very, very far ago when he won at 50-1 on the turf at Gulfstream Park in like 2021. He let it like Pete Aiello is animated as he always was. He's like, he's 50-1 or something like that. So it's one that always sticks in my mind. But anyway, Chris, Uncle Armando, to round out your trifecta.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get him in third. He's going to offer a little value. He just kind of gets in there and grinds it out every single time he gets in the gate. I've bet him to win a couple times with not much success, but he always shows up and gets there. And there are some other horses capable of running third in here, but that's the one I'm going to try to get underneath and make a little money.
Yeah, like you said, and we'll touch on it in best bets in a couple minutes due time. I'm going 4-9-3. Chris is going 9-4-5. Charlie's going 4-9-7. Pat's going 4-7-9. Guys, before we get into the feature on the card, if you guys are enjoying the content, please go and if you're watching on X, if you don't mind, after the show, please come over to YouTube. It's where we do our main work. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button if you enjoy the podcast. We'd greatly appreciate it. It's completely free. There's no, like I said, no cost to you at all. And it just shows us that you guys are enjoying the content. So we'd greatly appreciate it. Race number 11, guys, as I hinted at, is the Tropical Park Derby, going a mile on the 16th on the turf. Again, draws another full field of 12 in this race with some pretty decent returning names to the Gulfstream Park circuit, highlighted by the number 10, Cugino, Irad, Shug McGahee in this race. The number 11, Can Group, is a horse that won at a bomb at Keeneland, if I remember correctly. Palm Tree, Charlie, everyone's favorite horse to bet against last year, is back in this race. Silent Heart, the number 9 for Brian Lynch, I think is very, very good. Let's look at the picks right now. And Chris is going with the number 9 Silent Heart in this race. I have the horse. We actually all have the horse in second. This is another one, guys, where I think we're all thinking the same wavelength. 10, 9, 9, 10. Chris, you have the floor. What would you like most about the number 9 Silent Heart?
Basically just like the Philly race. I know you got another horse that ran here at Gulfstream last time, had an outside post, speed, gets to that position again. I will say there is more speed in this race than there is in the Phillies race. If you had to make me pick one on confidence, I would pick the Philly. But it's almost the exact same scenario. Breaks outside, clears the rail, repeats the last race. He's going to be hard to catch.
Yeah, I mean, you can see Timeform has the 9 out in front actually by himself, which like you said, I thought there was a little more speed in this race as more than the Philly race, as you touched on. However, this is one I fully thought that this horse was going to be my win pick, and then Cugino just kind of edged him out. However, Cugino probably will be a much lower price than Silent Heart will be, but definitely will be included in my best bets, as you'll see in a little bit. Charlie, I'll let you talk first on Cugino. Then Patrick, please feel free to follow up on anything Charlie says. Charlie, this is one that we always last year there's a second. The one in the Colonel Liam we tried to play against, we played against with the wrong horse, and then come to the Transylvania we played against with the wrong horse, and now he's showed the Audubon Stakes at Churchill was very good for Cugino, and even last time I thought he ran very well behind a very, very nice horse in Deterministic.
Yeah, Cugino's a horse I've been chasing for sure. Definitely one where, admittedly, because he's been running against a horse that's a favorite of mine, even though the horse never gets it done in Laganos. But regardless, in horizontals, certainly, and exactas, on like trying to hedge by playing this one as a favorite or a low price over some other bombs that I like. Cugino is a horse that every race where he has run that I've bet, I've been betting on it. And for me, I honestly, I will say it. And for the price I'll get, I probably shouldn't. But Cugino would probably be my unreasonable wager. I know we have that segment going, Kyle. So Cugino would be my unreasonable. We know Chris unknowingly maybe did his unreasonable wager segment earlier with the last race. So mine would be here with Cugino. Look, to me, off the layoff, we talk about Kentucky Downs is certainly not for everyone, and that's what I thought that day too. Comes off an awful race. On a pretty decent sized layoff, and comes back to run a really nice second against Deterministic. And I was kind of impressed that they sent the horse back out to 1 mile and 1/8, because I always thought this is one that was really meant for 1 mile and 16th. Now gets back to that exact distance. Again, had some unlucky efforts in the past. I'm happy about Mike's comment that he pointed out, because I agree. I do think Cugino is going to be closer to this pace. I do think because it should be a little disagree with Timeform, as you kind of hinted at, Kyle, and so did you, Chris. I think it will be a little more lively, which is why I'm happy for Cugino to be 2-3 lengths off the lead. Honestly, don't love that IRAD's aboard, just because I feel like it's going to make an unreasonable wager a little less realistic, because I feel like I won't get a good price. But I think kind of similar to Wakisu in the race earlier. Again, I just think this is one that could be sitting off of the speed by a few lengths and go by.
I mean, look, Cugino should be a lot closer to the pace, has been at this Gulfstream Park turf course. Again, Churchill, Aqueduct, very different track here comparatively to those, Patrick. Should be, I'm hoping at least, to be a little bit closer and just kind of trip out almost in this race. It may just be better.
Yeah, I think ultimately Cugino will just be best in this spot, and should be able to sit that nice stalking trip right off the pace. The other horse, because I'll talk about the 7 in a jam really quick. Listen, this horse is going to have to improve a little bit, but it has hit the money in every race at Gulfstream that he's running. And I
Top
think
2 as well.
Yeah, and I think that Cassie has this horse, facing competition that was kind of tough, and definitely, odds will tell you that. But I think is capable in here to improve, and should be a decent price. So if I'm going to play a little try key in here, not a best bet, but a try key within a jam, because I think this horse can definitely hit the board.
I mean, just going through, Pat, you got Fulmineo, Trickery, Best Bet Extraordinaire, Brilliant Birdie for me, and Donegal Momentum. I mean, there's a ton of really well-kept running lines, and yet it's not like he's run terrible necessarily against any of these horses. Coming back to the track he loves, definitely could see this one at least getting underneath as a price. Obviously, Charlie, you agreed you have this horse in third. Chris, anything you want to add about Cugino? We kind of hit it pretty hard, but anything you want to add maybe why you put Silent Heart over. You think Silent Heart's just going to get loose in this one, and then feel free to go into the 4, and then we'll end with best bets.
Yeah, and excuse me if I seem distracted. There's a contest at Turfway, so I'm going to key in some bets.
You're betting. Ooh, yeah, you're getting into us.
Kajino is definitely the class of the field. No, definitely won't surprise anybody. I just want to get loose on the lead here, not look back. It pretty cut and dry there. We'll go up. Let me scroll up here and find the number 4 because my computer is not wanting to cooperate.
And it's Palm Tree, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, we talk with you.
I know this horse too well.
This podcast legend.
I won a little money on this horse before, and if she can, or if he, excuse me, can get back to his Gulfstream race, if I can ever get my computer to go jumping around. Ran a good second to noted here. Goes to Kentucky Downs, like you guys just pointed out. We can forgive that. I don't think particularly like the Aqueduct track. The way he was moving, it just didn't look like the same horse. And maybe he's toasty. Maybe he's done. But I'm gonna give him another shot if he's a big prize.
I mean, absolutely. And this is one that, got a little bit of a break. He's going to come off over a 3-month layoff. Brendan Walsh is obviously, I think he's one of the best in the business with these types of moves. He runs a lot at Gulfstream Park over the winter, so he's obviously done very well, 3 for 8. So I thought Palm Tree actually had a pretty decent, he had some talent last year, just really never put it together. Always seemed one that got there, never really got it done, and was always at a low price. However, Palm Tree if he got in the money, I'd probably laugh a little bit just because of how much that I chased him earlier in the year, but could definitely see it for sure. One horse I want to talk about because someone mentioned it in the chat. Ed Burke said, I've been chasing Can Group, big time equipment change, the ultimate equipment change, some would say, with the gelding angle. Just one hasn't run as well as he did as a 2-year-old. Now comes back as 3. I don't know if he's just going to get. I think this horse is very pace dependent. Obviously, coming from very, very nice races. Just a matter of can he put it together. This is one I would see, clunking up for your type of exactas, trifectas, superfectas. Maybe not one I'd want to use on the win end, but should be a pretty decent price. We'll move on to best bets, everybody. I'm going 10-9-1. Chris is going 9-10-4. Charlie's going 10-9-7. Pat's going 10-9-7 as well. I didn't even see that. They were going with the same thing. So hopefully, if you guys like Pat and Charlie's picks, definitely look at this last one here. Again, Chris, been a fantastic time. Thank you very much for joining in. Greatly appreciate it. I'll let you go best bets first. Kind of already hinted on them, a couple of them. There's one you didn't mention. With race 7, a win on the number 9, Ain't No Disco. You did mention to me, though, that one is very dependent on the price that horse goes off at. With the Saver Exacta 7 over the 9, and race number 10, a win on the number 9, Valentine Bug, coupled with your ice cold Exacta and trifecta, Chris.
Well, about Exacta, I am going to pull another Saver here. I'm going to put the 4 over 9, but the win bet will be on Valentine's Bug, and the ice cold try will be 9, 4 over 5. Nothing else. Don't need them.
Look, I love it, man. Like you said, Ain't No Disco is the one in race number 7 that we talked about in the 2-year-old maiden special weight going 6 was the one for Brian Lynch that, wide trips and stuff like that. Maybe just hasn't been able to put it together, but definitely one that could have a chance with Arlington legend Edgar Perez up at the boot. And they said Valentine Bug to beat Swan Lake can look. I wouldn't be mad. I'm going to definitely, with the amount of confidence you show, I got to place. You'll see my best bets, but I'm going to place a Saver, what I like to call insanity insurance if that horse does win.
And when you get IRAD on horses you don't like at Gulfstream right now, and you got somebody else you like, you better hit them hard because you're not going to get them opportunities much.
That's very correct. Couldn't agree with you more. Patrick, going on to you, my friend. Winning the number 6 Random Harvest and a big Exacta 10-9, small Exacta 10-7, and race number 11. Pat.
Yeah, like Random Harvest in the Oaks, I think that horse should improve. And I like the first 2 races, particularly that allowance race. So I'm hoping she can run well in there. And then in race 11, I think Cugino's going to be a tough to beat. So I'm going to play some Exactas with the 9, who Chris likes, and the 7. In a jam, who I think is could hit the board in that spot. So I'm hoping for a decent pay in those Exactas, which should be a fun open card.
Yeah, Chris, did the Chris Amy horse won with Jimmy Watkins at 25-1 at Turfway? Is that who just won that?
Yep.
Chris? The Arlington Legends.
The Chris Amy effect, baby. Chris Amy.
And I just saw that in the chat. That's why I had to bring that up. I hope. Sorry if that was bad for you. I apologize. But
Oh no, I stayed out of that race. That race was horrible.
I just saw Jimmy Watkins and Chris Amy. I was like, man, rolling back the years there. Sorry, Pat. Good luck with your best bets on Saturday. Charlie, right back to chasing, my friend. I see race number 8, a win on the number 10, Wakisu, and race number 11, an exacta 10 over 7-9 with Cugino over the 2 horses we mentioned in that race, Silent Heart and In a Jam.
Yeah, I think you could argue race 8 is the most, not just the most open race or up there, but I think betting wise should be the best value race you'll find in this entire sequence. I really don't see anyone in that race going off at less than 3-1, 7-2. So I feel like with Wakisu, I should get a good enough price that I have no issues playing the horseback. Obviously, there's some concerns. I feel like that race is kind of the layoff stakes because you've got that one and Life's an Auto everyone's seen for a while. And then race 11 kind of feels like the chasing stakes because I feel like everybody in the chat and on here has at least one horse they like in that last race that they say they've been chasing. I know that's the case with my unreasonable wager Cugino, but I think Pat and I see this race very similar. I know I didn't kind of make it clear how I would deviate it, but I agree with Chris as well in this race. I think it really is 10 or 9. I would probably play, a big wager on an exacta 10-9, a smaller one with 10-7, and like Pat was hinting at, maybe play the 7 underneath as well in some tries because I don't think the 7's quite at the talent level, but always runs well here, as you showed Kyle 5 times in the top 2 at Gulfstream. But I think Cugino is the class of the race. Just will be a question of if the 9 is loose or not. And then I also think from a pick 5 perspective, it would maybe even be something where I single Cugino, then play a backup ticket without Cugino and use the 9 and 7.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's many different. That's why this card is so great. At least the sequence for sure is that there's so many different ways that you can play. Again, so many different races that you could see so many different outcomes having. And even if you feel very strongly, there's many different ways you can play those races and probably get it just inherent value by how tough these races are. So, Charlie, good luck with your best bets. Mine are very similar to yours, Charlie, to be honest with you. I'm just going a little bit of a different way with it. Charlie, one more time.
Verve.
Thank you. I have that horse, the number 8. I'm just doing that out of principle at this point. Number 8 to win in race number 8. I mentioned earlier, I said 4-1 earlier, 4-1, 9-2 or higher. Probably over 4-1 is what I would need on that horse. I don't know if I'll get it, but
I think you will.
I think the value is inherently enough to play a win bet. I know Chris is completely against me on that one, but that's why this game is great that he said, wouldn't play a win bet necessarily, but for me, I like the horse. 9-2 is probably 4 times the price that I play on my win bets normally. So, it's like it's a way to go. No, I'm just kidding, but it's a way to go about it where if the horse dips under 9-2, probably if it goes off to 7-2 or something insane, because my horses tend to have a value of doing that. I'm going to stay away. However, 9-2 or higher, I'm willing to play the number 8 in race number 8. Race number 10, Singling Swan Lake, Insanity Insurance, as I kind of mentioned before, with Chris's 9 that he feels so good about, with the 9-10 in the last race, just in case, unless Cugino's just that good, or the number 9, Silent Heart, does end up getting loose in that race. So going to go, again, a win bet in race number 8 and a double starting in race number 10. Chris, you've been absolutely fantastic. Thanks so much for joining in. Greatly appreciate it. I want to give you the last couple seconds here just as a kind of a winner circle per se. Tell people where they can find you and what you're doing right now. Like I said, you write for In the Money Media sometimes. Just where can people find your work?
InTheMoneyPodcast.com. Look under the Gulfstream tab. Writing up every day on the championship meet, Thursday through Sunday, which right now is when they start running Wednesday. I just can't do Wednesday. I just get tired. What I really want to talk about, unplanned, Matt Miller's book. If you are a serious player playing in contests and you have not read or listened to this book, you are doing yourself an injustice. You are burning money. I got a taste of Matt firsthand on the phone before the book come out. It changed my game. Period.
It's as simple as that. And I'm
better
glad
way of thinking.
Yeah, betterwayofthinking.com. I'm glad you brought that up. I had a banner for it. I must have Matt's going to hate me. I got rid of it, I think, for something other. But either way, a better way of thinking.com. And the funny thing is that it's BETTOR, but if you go to a BETTER way of thinking.com, it still takes you to the same place. So the man has thought of everything. I'm sure he very, very appreciates the shout out. So, and Matt Miller shares the same sentiment with you. Chris says, my vote is that Chris is the stand-in anytime one of the regulars can't make it. Great insights and love the ranking of opinions. Good show, all. Thanks. So completely agree with Chris. If you have not checked out that book yet, highly recommend it, because not only is it very, very good betting strategy and stuff like that, it's a ton of great stories as well. For a man that's had a very, very interesting life. So would highly recommend you checking it out. Again, a better way of thinking.com. But Chris, again, can't say enough about you. Thanks so much for joining on. And hopefully I'll see you soon at some point, whether it's Keeneland Spring or something along those lines. Would love to see you again soon, my friend. Boys, Charlie, Patrick, thanks again for everything you guys do. I know we have a guest on that's a little bit less talking for you guys, but it is very much appreciated, taking maybe a little bit of a backseat for a great guest in Chris Cupples. For my co-hosts, Patrick Kunsel, Charlie Freeman, and special guest Chris Cupples, who of In the Money Media, it's been your host, Kyle Roscoe, in episode 110 of Bettin and Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast, talking tropical parks, Oaks, and Derby Saturday at Gulfstream Park. And until next time, everybody, crush those bets, win those photos, and stay safe, everyone. We'll see you in the next one. Have a good night.
Thank you.